Let me paint you a picture. It's 2009. You're 18 years old. You have no idea what you want to do with your life. And every adult in your orbit, your parents, your teachers, your guidance counselor who smells like burnt coffee, is telling you the same thing. Go to college, get a degree. It's the only way. So you do. You take out $80,000 in student loans, spend 4 years studying something called communications, graduate with a 3.4 GPA and zero real-world skills, and walk straight into a job that pays $38,000 a year and requires a high school diploma. Congratulations, you played yourself, and you're not alone. There are currently 44 million Americans sitting on a combined $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. That's not a typo. Trillion, with a T. That's more than all U.S. credit card debt combined. And yet, every year, another wave of 18-year-olds lines up to do the exact same thing. Because somewhere along the way, a college degree stopped being a tool for education and became something far more dangerous, a social ritual, a status symbol, and one of the most expensive financial mistakes a person can make before they're old enough to rent a car. So today we're going to talk about the college degree scam, not the version where someone complains tuition is too high and posts about it on Twitter. The real version. The one with broken incentives, credential inflation, and an industry that figured out how to get 18-year-olds to take on decades of debt before they understand what compound interest is. Let's start at the beginning. For most of the 20th century, a college degree actually made sense. After World War II, the economy was booming, manufacturing was king, and a college degree was genuinely rare. Only about 5% of Americans had one, which meant if you had one, you stood out. Employers noticed. You got the job, the salary, the whole thing. The return on investment was real and measurable, so naturally, everyone wanted in, and that's where the trouble started. Because when everyone wants something, the price goes up, and when the government decides to make that thing more accessible by guaranteeing student loans, the price goes up even faster. Because here's the dirty secret about government-backed student loans. They remove the one thing that usually keeps prices honest. Risk. When a bank lends you money for a house, they can repossess the house if you don't pay. There's a natural ceiling on how much they'll lend because they're on the hook if things go south. But student loans don't work like that. The government guarantees them. Which means universities can charge whatever they want, students can borrow whatever they need, and the bank doesn't care because they're getting paid either way, and charge they did. Since 1980, college tuition has increased by over 1,200%. For reference, general inflation over the same period was around 236%. Housing went up 539%. Even healthcare, which everyone agrees is outrageously expensive, only went up about 601%. Nothing has outpaced college tuition. Nothing. And it's not because universities suddenly got better at educating people. It's because they figured out they could raise prices indefinitely and enrollment would keep growing. Because the social pressure to attend college is so deeply embedded in American culture that price barely registers as a deterrent, you just borrow more. And what did universities do with all that extra money? They built. They built luxury dormitories, state-of-the-art recreation centers, lazy rivers, and climbing walls. They hired armies of administrators. Between 1975 and 2008, the number of full-time faculty at U.S. universities increased by 51%. The number of administrators? 369%. There are universities today with more vice presidents than Nobel laureates. Because the goal of a modern university isn't to educate you as efficiently as possible. It's to compete for enrollment by making campus look like a 5-star resort, charge you accordingly, and let 22-year-old you figure out the bill later. But here's where it gets really sinister. Because even if you accept that universities are expensive, the implicit promise has always been that the degree is worth it. That the piece of paper you get at the end opens doors that nothing else can. And for a long time, that was partially true. But it isn't anymore. And the reason is something economists call credential inflation. Credential inflation is what happens when a credential becomes so widespread that it loses its value as a signal. In 1970, only about 11% of the U.S. workforce had a college degree. Today, it's over 37%. Which sounds like progress until you realize what happened to the jobs in between. Employers who used to use a college degree as a filter for basic competence and work ethic started demanding degrees for jobs that have absolutely nothing to do with higher education. Jobs that used to require a high school diploma now list a bachelor's degree as a minimum requirement, not because the job got harder, but because when everyone has a degree, it becomes the new floor, not a differentiator. So the signal that once set you apart now just gets you in the room. And to actually stand out, you need a master's degree. And to really stand out, you need a master's degree and 3 years of experience for an entry-level position. And round we go. There's a paper published in the Harvard Business Review that tracked degree requirements across U.S. job postings over a decade. What they found was striking. Employers were quietly adding degree requirements to middle-skill jobs without changing the actual duties or pay of those jobs. They called it degree inflation. A position that paid $45,000 in 2008 and required a high school diploma now required a bachelor's degree and paid $47,000. The degree requirement doubled. The salary barely moved. Congratulations, you spent $80,000 to earn an extra $2,000 a year. The math does not math. And then there's the issue nobody wants to say out loud. A huge percentage of college degrees simply aren't worth what people pay for them. Not all degrees are created equal. A computer science degree from a strong university has a measurable return on investment. An engineering degree, nursing, accounting, same story. But the data on the other end is brutal. Studies have found that roughly a quarter of college graduates end up in jobs that don't require a degree at all. And when you look at certain majors specifically, the median salary 10 years after graduation barely clears what you'd make managing a Starbucks. Meanwhile, the debt follows them like a shadow for the next 20 years. And here's the part that makes it a genuine scam as opposed to just a bad investment. Universities know this. The data is public. They know which graduates are employed, at what salary, and in what fields. And they still recruit students into low-return programs, still charge the same tuition, and still hand out diplomas like participation trophies. Because their business model doesn't depend on your outcome. It depends on your enrollment. Once you sign the promissory note, they've already won. Your success after graduation is a nice marketing talking point, but it's not their problem. The incentive structure is completely backwards. If a university's revenue depended on your post-graduation salary, you better believe the curriculum would look very different. But it doesn't, so it doesn't. And the students who suffer most aren't the ones who went to elite schools and graduated into high-paying careers. Those people largely do fine. The students who suffer most are the ones who were told a degree was the only path, who came from families without the wealth to absorb the cost, who borrowed heavily, chose a major based on passion rather than market demand, and graduated into a labor market that shrugged. Those are the people the system was never designed to protect. Because the college industrial complex, and that's genuinely what it is, doesn't care about those people. It cares about the next incoming class and the federal loan dollars they bring with them. Now, is the solution to never go to college? No. That's not the point. The point is that a college degree should be a deliberate financial decision, not a social reflex. Because the question nobody asks 18-year-olds is simple. What is the expected return on this specific degree from this specific school relative to this specific cost? If the answer is good, go. If the answer is bad, maybe learn to code, go to a trade school, start a business, or do literally anything other than take on 6 figures of debt to find yourself. Because the 4 most dangerous words in personal finance aren't this time it's different. They're everyone else does it. And until people start treating a college enrollment decision the way they treat any other major financial decision, with skepticism, with math, and with an exit strategy, the industry will keep doing exactly what it's doing, raising prices, lowering standards, and cashing the check.